Welcome. This lesson is for BSc 5th semester students. The lesson is from Physiology and Biochemistry paper. The topic is excretion. With the help of this lesson, the learners will be able to know and understand meaning and definition of excretion, the various nitrogenous metabolic products like ammonia, urea and uric acid, and classification of animals according to the nitrogenous waste products. Those are ammonogenic animals, ureogenic animals and uricogenic animals. The human excretory system, internal structure of the kidney and structure of nephron. Animals ingest food in order to maintain their body growth and development. The energy release is accompanied by the production of various byproducts like carbon dioxide, water and nitrogenous waste like ammonia, urea and uric acid. Carbon dioxide is eliminated from the body by lungs. The nitrogenous wastes are produced by the catabolism of amino acids. So these wastes, that is, those are ammonia, urea and uric acid, are toxic and they ought to be eliminated from the body as early as possible. So excretion is a process of elimination of nitrogenous metabolic waste from the body. Kidneys play a major role in the elimination of the nitrogenous waste. They also play several roles. They play a role in homeostasis. They help in maintenance of water and ionic concentration and pH of the body fluids. They serve as hematopoietic organ. They help in regulation of blood pressure and blood calcium levels by regulating the synthesis of vitamin D. The primary source of nitrogenous waste is a pool of amino acids. Both the dietary proteins and cellular proteins are hydrolyzed to form a pool of amino acids. So from these amino acids, they are utilized. Some of the amino acids are utilized for the synthesis of new proteins. The remaining excess of amino acids cannot be stored in the body as glucose and fatty acids and glycerol are stored. They are catabolized to form ammonia, and this ammonia is eliminated from the body or it is converted to urea or uric acid in the liver. In the animal kingdom, the excretory system has evolved from a simple membrane to a complex structure called kidney. In primitive animals like protozoans, sponges and cnidarians, the excretion takes place through the cell membrane through a process called diffusion. But in Platyhelminthes, we can see specialized cells called flame cells. And in Annelidia, coiled tubules are present which are called as nephridia. In Arthropoda, structures like Malpighian tubules, coxal glands and antennary glands are present. In vertebrates, in the higher animals, a structure called kidney has evolved, and this kidney is a homeostatic organ which is useful for osmoregulation and excretion. So kidney, along with some other structures, it is integrated to form an organized system called excretory system. So this excretory system performs the process of excretion. Now let us see about the classification of animals according to the nitrogenous waste they excrete. So the basic nitrogenous waste that different animals excrete are ammonia, urea and uric acid. So these are formed in the catabolism of amino acids and nucleic acids. The animals which excrete ammonia are called as ammonotelic animals, and those animals which excrete urea are called as ureotelic animals, and the animals which excrete uric acid are called as uricotelic animals. These three nitrogenous wastes, they vary in their toxicity and their energy costs. Now let us study the various nitrogenous wastes and the animals which excrete them in detail. So first is ammonia. The animals which excrete ammonia, they are called as ammonotelic animals. And the method where ammonia is excreted by ammonotelic animals is called ammonotelism. Ammonia is highly toxic substance. It has to be eliminated as soon as it is formed. Hence, in many animals, ammonia combines with the glutamate and forms glutamine. So this glutamine is transported in the blood circulation to the site of excretion. At the site of excretion, the glutamine is hydrolyzed by glutaminase enzyme to glutamate and ammonium ions, and from here the ammonia is eliminated. Ammonia is highly soluble in water and it relatively passes through the cell membranes easily when compared to urea and uric acid. To excrete ammonia, animals require 400 ml of water to excrete 1 gram of ammonia. Hence, the animals which live in water, that is aquatic animals, only excrete ammonia. Sponges, cnidarians, crustaceans, echinoderms, bony fishes, tadpoles, salamanders, they excrete ammonia. So in fishes, the ammonia is excreted with the help of gills. Kidneys play a less role in excretion. The gill epithelium, from the gill epithelium, the ammonium ions are eliminated, and this is facilitated by anti-Porter mechanism, where sodium ions are exchanged for the ammonium ions. That is, sodium ions are taken into the body of the fish from the surroundings, and ammonium ions are eliminated from the body of the fish into the surroundings. So this mechanism is facilitated by anti-Porter mechanism. So this is called anti-Porter mechanism, and because of this mechanism, the concentration of the sodium ions increases in the body fluids of the fishes. The animals which excrete urea are called as ureotelic animals, and the mode of excretion of urea is called as ureotelism. Urea is less toxic than ammonia, hence it is stored and carried in the blood. It is stored in the blood by cartilaginous fishes, and it is carried by the blood to the kidneys where it is eliminated. Urea requires 10 times less water than that is required for the excretion of ammonia. It is easily soluble in water. Hence, the animals which do not have sufficient access to water, they excrete the nitrogenous waste in the form of urea. So most of the land animals like mammals, amphibians, cartilaginous fishes, they excrete urea. The main disadvantage of urea excretion is it requires 4 ATP for the formation of one molecule of urea in the liver. So the animals, in order to conserve the energy, the amphibian animals, they switch over to ammonia excretion when they are in water, and when they are on land, they excrete urea. So we can see ammonia excretion in tadpoles of amphibians, and when they are on land, adult, they excrete urea. And the third nitrogenous base product is uric acid. The animals which excrete uric acid are called as uricogenic animals. The animals which have little access to water, they excrete nitrogenous waste in the form of uric acid. The amount of water required for the excretion of uric acid is 50 times less than ammonia. So this uric acid is highly non-toxic and it can be stored in the body for a longer time. So this is stored in the body and it is eliminated leisurely. The uric acid is eliminated in the form of semi-solid. The animals like birds, insects, reptiles, snails, crustaceans, they eliminate their waste in the form of uric acid. So this uric acid, in case of reptiles and birds, it enters into the cloaca, and there the water present in the uric acid, nitrogenous waste, is absorbed and it is eliminated through cloaca along with the undigested food in the form of semi-solid paste. So in human also, the uric acid is excreted in small amounts, and this is formed by the catabolism of nucleic acids. The clear-cut categorization of the animals based on their elimination products is not possible. The elimination of the nitrogenous waste depends upon their evolutionary history, the habitat in which they live, and the availability of the water. The animals which have more access to water, they excrete ammonia, and the animals which have sufficient access to water, they eliminate urea, and the animals which have very less access to water, in order to conserve water, they eliminate uric acid. And in birds, it is the elimination of uric acid is a flight adaptation. The embryos of amphibians excrete urea as it passes through the shell, through the egg membrane, which is devoid of the shell. While the larval stages, they excrete ammonia. The human embryo will excrete urea in soluble form, which is carried away by the mother's blood. And in reptiles and birds, where there is the egg is covered with shell, the embryos will excrete uric acid, which is stored in the egg itself as it is covered with shell. In type of excretion depends on the habitat in which they live. The land turtles, when they live on land, they excrete the uric acid, and the aquatic turtles, they excrete both urea and ammonia. The excretory products also change with the change of the habitat. The turtles tend to change from ureotelism to uricotelism when the temperature increases and the availability of water is less. They change from ureotelism to uricotelism, that is excrete uric acid instead of urea. Similarly, some animals excrete ammonia, urea or uric acid depending on the availability of water. Tadpole larva will excrete ammonia when it is in water, that is it lives, actually its habitat is water, and it excretes ammonia. And the adult excretes urea, the adult frog excretes urea, and the same frog, when it undergoes estivation, it excretes uric acid. And salamanders also, when they are placed in water, they excrete ammonia, and when they are placed on land, they excrete urea. Now let us see about human excretory system. Human excretory system consists of a pair of kidneys, a pair of ureters, urinary bladder and urethra. The kidneys are located in the abdominal cavity on either side of the vertebral column, extending from the 12th thoracic vertebrae to the 3rd lumbar vertebrae. So these are reddish brown in color, bean shaped structures. The right kidney is slightly lower to the left kidney, and it is depressed here, it is lower, as liver is present towards this region. Liver is present towards this region. And it weighs about 200, the adult kidney weighs about 200 to 250 grams in weight. It is about 10 centimeters long, 6 centimeters wide and 4 centimeters thick. The outer surface is convex and the inner surface is concave. At the concave surface, in the middle of the concave surface, we can observe a notch-like structure, and this notch is called as hilum. Renal arteries, veins and nerves, ureters enter and leave the kidney through this hilus. Renal artery, which is the branch of the dorsal aorta, enters into the kidney through this hilus, and it brings the oxygenated blood to the kidney, and the blood also consists of nitrogenous waste materials. The renal vein emerges out from the kidney, and it carries the deoxygenated blood from the cavity, which is devoid of nitrogenous waste materials, and it opens into the inferior vena cava, also called as post-caval vein. And there are a pair of adrenal glands on each kidney, which are closely associated with the kidney. So at the anterior end, a pair of adrenal glands are present, but these glands are not associated with excretion. Now let us see about ureters. Ureters are tube-like structures, long tube-like structures. They emerge out from the hilum of each kidney. They enter downward to the lower abdominal region and open into a sac-like structure called urinary bladder. These ureters collect urine from the kidneys and they enter into urinary bladder. The ureters, they have the oblique entrance of the ureters into the urinary bladder. They act as walls and they prevent the backward flow of urine into ureters. And the next is the urinary bladder. This urinary bladder is a large sac-like structure. It is muscular. And at the mouth of the urinary bladder, there is a sphincter. And this sphincter regulates the opening and closing of the urinary bladder. The function of the urinary bladder is to store the urine and release the urine through urethra to outside at regular intervals. And the next part is urethra. Urethra is a small muscular tube, and at the base of the urethra a sphincter is present. So this is always closed. This sphincter always remains closed except for the time when it passes out the urine. So when the urinary bladder, when the sphincter that is present in the urinary bladder relaxes, the urine that is present in the urinary bladder, it passes out of the urinary bladder and flows into the urethra. And from the urethra, the urine is passed out. So the process of elimination of urine is called as micturition. Now let us see the internal structure of the kidney. Kidney consists of three parts. One is cortex, and the second is medulla, and the third is pelvis. This is the pelvis region. This is the medullary region, and this is the cortex region. So the cortex region is the outermost portion of the kidney. It is dark red in color and consists of many granules. So it consists of Malpighian corpuscles and proximal and distal convoluted tubules of the nephron. And the inner medulla is broad and it consists of collecting tubules and the loop of Henle of nephron. The parts called loop of Henle and collecting tubules of nephron are present in medulla. So the medulla consists of 8 to 15 conical structures called renal pyramids. So these pyramids will have at their apex papilla. The collecting tubules, they are present in the renal pyramid, and these collecting tubules join to form a large duct called duct of Bellini. So this renal pyramids, they open into the wide pelvis through openings which are located at the tip of papillae, and the ducts of Bellini also open into the wide pelvis region. So this medulla is light red in color and it is non-granular. And now let us see the renal pelvis. Renal pelvis is a broad structure which is present towards the inner side of the kidney, soon after the medulla. The broad end of the pelvis, that is the proximal end of the pelvis, consists of two types of calyces. This is a major calyx, and here we can see minor calyx. So the minor calyx, it will communicate with it is attached to the renal pyramid. It is attached to the renal pyramid, to the apex of the renal pyramid. And it collects the urine from the renal pyramid. So in the renal pyramid there are collecting ducts which unite to form ducts of Bellini, and these Bellini ducts, they pass the urine into the pelvis. That is the first region of the pelvis, that is a minor calyx. So in between to these minor calyces, we can see the cortex projecting into the medulla. The cortex projects into the medulla and forms columns of Bertini and forms the columns of Burkitt. The renal pyramids, they open at their apex, at the renal papilla, and pass the urine into the pelvis. The urine is passed from the pelvis into urinary bladder through ureters. Now let us see the structure of nephron. Each kidney consists of many nephrons. Each kidney has about 1.2 million nephrons. Nephron is a structural and functional unit of kidney. So nephron is a long tubular coil structure. It is U-shaped, and at its head it consists of a round renal corpuscle or Malpighian corpuscle. Emerging from this, there is a long tubular coil part that is called as a renal tubule. The renal tubule can be differentiated into various parts. The first is the proximal convoluted tubule, and then it joins to the loop of Henle. This is the loop of Henle. It is U-shaped. It has two limbs, ascending limb and descending limb. And then there is distal convoluted tubule, and this distal convoluted tubule opens into the collecting duct. So all these parts take part in the formation of urine. So the epithelial surfaces of this renal tubule consists of different types of cells, and based on them they function based on the presence of the epithelial cell layers. They perform their function in the process of urine formation, that is either reabsorption or secretion. Now let us see the structure of Malpighian capsule. Malpighian capsule is a pinhead-like structure that is present at the head of the nephron. So it consists of two parts. One is called as Bowman's capsule, and the second is the glomerulus. Bowman's capsule is a double-walled cup-like structure. Glomerulus is formed by a network of capillaries. It is formed by the afferent arteriole, that is the incoming arteriole, and the outgoing arteriole called efferent arteriole. So it looks like the appearance of a knotted network of capillaries, and it is situated in the cup of the Bowman's capsule. The endothelium of the glomerulus consists of numerous pores. Pores are present in the endothelium of the Bowman's capsule called fenestrae. The middle basement membrane is secreted by the endothelial cells of the glomerulus and the epithelial cells that are lining the wall of the Bowman's capsule. So the cells in the wall of the Bowman's capsule are called as podocytes. So here we can see this is a basement membrane and it is formed by the podocyte cells. The podocytes cells consist of cell body and cell process. The cell process of one podocyte interlock with the cell process of the adjacent podocyte and form intercellular clefts. These intercellular clefts are called as filtration slits or capsular slits. So these slits help in the filtration of the blood. They aid in the formation of urine by a process called ultrafiltration. Now let us see about the renal tubule. A renal tubule is a tube-like structure. It is a long coiled tube-like structure that is continuous with the glomerulus, and this renal tubule is differentiated into proximal convoluted tubule and loop of Henle. So this is a descending loop of Henle and this is ascending loop of Henle, and later it forms the distal convoluted tubule, and next part is the collecting duct. And now let us see the first part of the renal tubule, that is proximal convoluted tubule. So the proximal convoluted tubule, it is a coiled twisted structure that arises from the Malpighian capsule. So this proximal convoluted tubule is present in the cortex region of the kidney. The wall of the proximal convoluted tubule consists of a single layer of cuboidal epithelial cells. So these cells consist of microvilli. They consist of microvilli at their surface. The cells have microvilli, that is the brush border. So this brush border, they increase the reabsorptive surface area. The apex of the cell's surface also consists of transporters. It consists of the transporters called aquaporin 1. Aquaporins are the water channels which allow rapid and selective absorption of water molecules across the cell membranes. in response to osmotic gradient, and at the same time they prevent the passage of ions and other solutes. So this aquaporin 1 is present on the apex of the surface of the cells in proximal convoluted tubule for the passage of water molecules. In addition to this, it also consists of sodium dependent symporters for the absorption of glucose and amino acids by secondary active transport. Sodium potassium ATPase is also present for the reabsorption of sodium ions by primary active transport. And this proximal convoluted tubule descends into the medulla to form the loop of Henle. Next is the loop of Henle. The loop of Henle has two limbs. One is descending limb and the other is ascending limb. The ascending limb is the descending limb is thin and the ascending limb has two segments. One is a thin segment and the second is a thick segment. The descending limb is lined by squamous epithelium cells and it consists of aquaporins. Hence, this descending limb is permeable to water, but it is impermeable to ions. And the ascending limb, the thin segment of the ascending limb is impermeable to water due to the absence of aquaporins, but is permeable to ions, while the descending limb is impermeable to ions. The thick ascending segment co-transports sodium, potassium and chloride ions with the help of sodium potassium 2 chloride co-transporter into the interstitial fluid. So the filtrate in the ascending segment passes on to the distal convoluted tubule. Next is the distal convoluted tubule. The distal convoluted tubule, it is a continuation of the ascending limb of loop of Henle. Distal convoluted tubule is present in the cortex region. So the distal convoluted tubule is made up of cuboidal epithelial cells. These cells will a single layer of cuboidal epithelial cells. These cells are consists of numerous mitochondria, but there is no brush border, that is microvilli are absent. So these cells are responsible for tubular secretion. Tubular secretion is done by renal outer medullary potassium transporter, which is an potassium channel, which is an ATP dependent potassium channel, and it transports potassium ions out of the cell. The distal convoluted tubule continues to form the collecting tubule. The collecting tubule consists of two types of cells, principal cells and intercalated cells. Principal cells, they reabsorb water with the help of aquaporin 2 and 4 and sodium ions with the help of epithelial sodium channel, and they secrete potassium through renal outer medullary potassium channel. And the intercalated cells, they are associated with the acid-base homeostasis in distal segments, and they secrete H+ ions and absorb potassium ions, and they have aquaporin 6 along with H plus potassium ATPase. And next let us see about vasa recti. The efferent arteriole, it emerges out of the glomerulus and forms peritubular capillary network around it. So this peritubular capillary network in the juxtamedullary nephron, it descends down around the loop of Henle and forms a branch of capillaries called as vasa recta. So the flow of blood in the vasa recta is opposite to the direction of the flow of filtrate in the segments of the renal tubule. Vasa rectae bring oxygen and nutrients to the medullary nephron, and they take away water and solutes that are continuously added to the interstitial fluid around the nephron. So vasa rectae along with the peritubular capillaries are present around the proximal and distal convoluted tubules. So this peritubular capillary network along with the vasa rectae unite to form the renal venule. The renal venule joins to form the renal vein, and this renal vein leaves the kidney. There are two types of nephrons in human kidney. One is cortical nephron and the other is a juxtamedullary nephron. Cortical nephrons are short. They are mostly present in the cortex region, about 85%, and they descend. Their Henle loops, they are present at they extend only up to the periphery of the medulla. But the juxtamedullary nephrons, their glomerulus, that is the Bowman's capsule, is situated at the junction of the cortex and medulla, and the other part, that is the loop of Henle, descends to the deeper medulla. So it extends up to the deeper part of the medulla. So these have very long loop of Henle. So both these nephrons, they function differently at different times. When the water availability is more, the cortical nephrons become active and maintain the blood volume by producing dilute urine. While in contrast, the juxtamedullary nephrons, they become active when the water availability is less, and they produce concentrated urine by water retention and thus maintain the blood volume.